So welcome to another episode of Inside IALR. Thanks for joining us today. We've talked a lot about our different programs and divisions so far, and how, tying all that together is that all of what we do here contributes to economic transformation in Southern Virginia. The focus areas, the methods, the how, that varies, but that mission stays the same. And today we're here to talk about two programs that have a little bit less of an obvious connection to economic transformation, but very much still tie into that mission. It's the two different AmeriCorps programs that we help facilitate. So we're here with Dana Salicki, our program manager for advanced learning. Dana, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So to start, can you just give us kind of a quick overview of, what is AmeriCorps? I know that's something that a lot of people have probably heard of, but might not know a lot about. So what is AmeriCorps? And then how did IALR get involved in these AmeriCorps programs?
Sure. So AmeriCorps is a federal agency for national service and volunteerism, and the mission is to improve lives and really strengthen communities, foster civic engagement through service and volunteering. So there's some similarities and some differences to jobs, as it's not considered a job, but it's considered a national service opportunity. Sometimes we like to say it's a civilian Peace Corps, since more people have heard of that and kind of can relate to that. But it's a way that you can really give back to your community locally in some of the areas. So AmeriCorps in general focuses on 6 primary areas: disaster services, economic opportunity, education, environmental stewardship, healthy futures, veterans and military families. And our 2 programs tie into education and public health. And so we're really looking with the 2 programs to make an impact in those. And each AmeriCorps program is a little bit different. So even if you've heard of an AmeriCorps state program in another locality, it could be completely different from ours, as they all have different focus areas and ways that they implement their programs. So it's kind of a way to support public-private partnerships and collaborations to address local challenges through service. And usually AmeriCorps funds and supports initiatives in partnership with federal or different organizations that can help drive the impact in their community. So there's a lot of partnerships involved with both AmeriCorps programs.
For our 2 programs that we administer here, can you tell us a little bit about just sort of how those 2 got started, when they got started, and sort of, big picture what those programs set out to do?
Sure. So we started the Dan River Year program back in 2015. So we're getting ready to begin our 9th year with the program. And really there is a need in our community for addressing some STEM areas: science, technology, engineering, and math. And so when we began, we partnered with local organizations, local community colleges, nonprofits, and schools to try to do STEM workshops, as there is a big future in STEM. A lot of what we're moving towards, if you have STEM skills, can help you acquire jobs and different skill sets. Over time, we've adapted and changed a little bit based on the needs of our community, and now we also have a literacy component involved in our Dan River Year program as well. And that was due to seeing what's going on in the community, listening to our partners and stakeholders, and them saying STEM is great. We still want to focus on that, but students were having trouble reading the math problem, for example. So then, of course, they can't complete the math problem. So we added that in there to help that as well.
What age group is that program for?
The Dan River Year program over the years has changed a little bit, the ages. Right now it's focusing on 3rd and 4th in our local elementary schools, and then our out-of-school partners is elementary and middle school. The REACH AmeriCorps program, which is our other AmeriCorps program that we're in our first year of, focuses on public health, as it's under the public health umbrella. They started the public health AmeriCorps programs in response to COVID and other health issues that were going on, and we're getting ready to start our 2nd year with that. And that one focuses on conducting educational workshops in Caswell, Danville, and Pittsylvania County to address areas of high need and chronic illnesses, specifically in our area.
And just for context, like how many, I guess you call them AmeriCorps members, how many AmeriCorps members are involved in each of these programs on a yearly basis?
So in our upcoming year, which is getting ready to start September 1st, we have 37 slots for our Dan River Year program and 15 for our REACH AmeriCorps program.
And I want to just mention, this has been a theme through a lot of our episodes so far, is that, so little of what we do here at IALR is done on our own. And I think this is another great example of that, is that, we're obviously partnering with AmeriCorps, partnering with the school systems, a lot of other partners involved there. Let's dive a little bit more into the Dan River Year AmeriCorps program. So you talked about the STEM, you talked about the literacy component being added onto that. What has the impact of that program been? You said it's been 9 years. What is the impact of that program? How has that contributed to our community?
So having a education, the students that can read, of course, is going to make a big difference. In elementary school, students learn how to read, and in middle school, they read to learn. And so if there's that gap, if they don't have a strong foundation of learning to read, it makes a gap that the student has a really hard time closing. And so being able to address some of those needs, close that gap so that students can get farther on track, makes a big difference. And sometimes we can look at little successes in the student did better this year, but some of the successes are going to be many years down the road, seeing how that gap being closed is going to help. And then unfortunately with COVID, that gap seemed to increase a little bit with some of our students as well. And again, we're trying to get that gap closed again so that the students can have more opportunities in the future.
And you mentioned earlier there's in school and out of school component to that program. Talk a little bit more about that. What are the members doing in those different environments?
So in school, our members work with third and fourth graders at local elementary schools, and they're working with about 12 to 15 students per AmeriCorps member. They work with them in one-on-one and small group. They listen to what the teachers are doing in their classroom, because some of us, it's been a while since we were in the classroom, right? And how they teach things is a little different. And so we want to reinforce what the teacher is teaching these students. So the members are in the classroom hearing that, and then they pull the students out in those one-on-one or small group, and again help reinforce with those students in those smaller groups in those STEM and literacy. Most of our members are helping in the English and the math classrooms. And so each student they're working with, the goal is they're doing 90 minutes per student each week. But they have 12 to 15 students that are really working with, targeted each week. They have set schedules so that they can work with them. Having that bond with those specific students in kind of a mentoring capacity helps them achieve success in tutoring by having that close relationship. And students learn differently. So trying different tactics with students that may not be able to be utilized with the whole classroom at a time can be successful for those students as well. Sometimes they come up with some STEM activities that weren't necessarily, or literacy that weren't necessarily gone on in the classroom, but it kind of can add to reach that student with a specific different way that works for them in their learning, for them to achieve that success. In out of school, the students are working at some of our partners, Danville Church and Community-Based Tutorial and local Boys and Girls Clubs. And they're working with them. Of course, it's a little bit different amount of time because out of school, they're not there as much at those sites in the evening. But they're, again, working with them one-on-one, small group. Generally tends to be more small group in those to help tutor things that maybe they didn't get assistance with while they were at school or still have questions about, or they can create STEM lessons to give and implement with the students at those sites. And really what we're looking at those out-of-school sites is the social emotional aspect. So that, studies have proven that students succeed more when they have somebody that's really in their team, helping them out. And the more people that, they have a close bond with, helping them succeed, the better. And so we're looking at not just did their grades improve, but we're also seeing, are they better able to tackle some of life's challenges through coping mechanisms, or realizing the best way that they learn and can adapt for the future as well. If they're not specifically working with an AmeriCorps member, some of those skill sets they can retain with them and use some of those skills as they go on.
And I think, that's cool what you're saying, that this is basically, this program is to make sure that those kids that might be falling behind a little bit don't fall further behind. And that's definitely a worthy objective to make sure that those kids can get the education they need to continue forward. You talked about the during the school year part of this. There's also the summer aspect. So can you talk a little bit about what the Dan River Year AmeriCorps program looks like during the summers?
So we have summer camps at several of our locations, including the Institute. And so we want to keep kids engaged throughout the summer so that we can decrease some of the summer learning loss in fun, hands-on ways so they don't necessarily realize that they're learning sometimes, but they're actively engaged. They, again, have those mentorship bonds with our AmeriCorps members while they're learning in STEM and reading initiatives throughout the summer so that, again, we can build and prevent loss of some of those STEM areas over summer, and then also build those relationships and continue the growth that they've made throughout the year as well.
No, that makes sense. And what you just said about they don't realize that they're learning, that's
the best way.
It's a good approach. You said, a lot of the impact is long-term, that, it's not, you can't necessarily say right after that, this student got tutored that it's immediately a success story. You don't know. But talk to me about some of the impact we have seen from this program, both for the members who participate as well as the, big picture for students who are being tutored.
Sure. So, being in our 8th year with Dan River Year, we've had a lot of members come through the program that didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do or didn't have the skill set to get certain jobs that they were looking for. And we've had several members with success in getting jobs after this program directly related to the skills that they acquired or enhanced while they were in AmeriCorps, or from networking that they made through their service, helped them acquire jobs in the field or sometimes outside the field just through the networking, and they've directly attributed it to the skills that they were learning in AmeriCorps. With students, that aha moment with the student is not something that we can necessarily measure with a number sometimes, but seeing the difference from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, we've had many successes in that. And that's really what keeps the members going, are those aha moments as well, of giving back and the students being able to thrive and really increase not only in their knowledge, but their confidence as well. For the REACH workshops, those are focusing on public health. And so we've had some workshop participants call us back the next week. And an example is one took a mental health workshop, and they called back the next week and they said, this has really helped me realize the need that I had to address some of these issues. And so impacts like that, may also prevent future mishaps or health issues that there could have been. It has a big impact on not only that person, but on our economic transformation as well.
Right. And I think now is a good time to stop and just, we're looking for people to fill positions in both of these programs. So you mentioned 37 spots in Dan River Year. I'm sure some of these are filled, but 37 spots in the Dan River Year program and 15 in the REACH or Public Health AmeriCorps. What are those opportunities look like? How many open positions do we still have? What are the sort of the time constraints, things like that?
So with those positions, the public health positions that we have that we're looking for are 9-month contracts. And so we have a cohort starting here next week in some of those positions, but because it's a 9-month, we also have a little bit of a rolling start where we'll be starting some members in October, some members in November as well. In the REACH AmeriCorps program, it's about 25 hours a week. Generally, their office hours per se are 9 to 2:30, Monday through Friday. But there could be times outside of that because they're doing workshops in the community. So there could be afternoon or evening workshops that they set up as well outside of that. But those have 900 hours total that they serve in their 9-month contract. For the Dan River Year, some of the positions will start in the spring and some in the summer. So we kind of do a rolling for some of those. Some of them are starting now in the schools. And so most those positions that we're filling are 300-hour positions, and it depends on the site. Some of our after-school sites, it's a full year that 300 hours is spread out, as of course there's less opportunity after school to get in those hours. And so it ends up being about 5 to 10 hours a week. At the school sites, those 300-hour contracts, they're doing about 25 hours a week still. And so they end up being 5 to 6 month contracts for them to get in their hours. And that is during the school day.
While we're on the topic of, this opportunity being available, what are sort of the benefits for someone who participates? I mean, you mentioned it's sort of an employment opportunity, but I know it's not technically an employment opportunity. But what are some of those benefits?
So there is a stipend associated with each position. So for our minimum time, which is our 300-hour positions, the stipend is $3,600. And also when members complete the program successfully, they're eligible for a Siegel Education Award. And what that is money for school that the members have 7 years to use. For anything educational, it doesn't have to be a degree program necessarily, and it could go towards student loans that they may already have or in the future, or if members don't want to utilize it themselves and they're 55 or older when they begin service, they can gift that to an immediate family member. So they gain the experience, they of course, get the opportunity to give back to the community. They do have a stipend and money for college, and there's training throughout the year as well that we change what it is each year based on what our members need. And so, some examples, it could be first aid, CPR, we help them with resumes, cover letters, and things like that, but different workshops, relating to how to work with children. Again, changing it each year based on what our members want and need. With the Reach AmeriCorps program, that position is what's called half-time, which means it's 900 service hours. The stipend for that is $11,500. And that position, where it's spread out over the 9 months, is again about 25 hours a week. And then their Siegel is over $3,000 that they receive for that as well, for educational opportunities.
The Siegel Education Award, that's definitely a cool benefit that obviously has a very specific monetary value, but that definitely, I mean, you mentioned it can be for student loans or current or future education. Definitely a cool benefit there. Let's talk a little bit about because we've talked some about the public health AmeriCorps, but let's talk a little bit more about that before we get into sort of like who the, typical AmeriCorps member is. But for the public health AmeriCorps program, you mentioned that started sort of around COVID, and we just finished our first year. What does that program do? What are these workshops that these members are leading? What are these topics that they're focusing on, and why does that matter? Why does what they do matter?
So the REACH partnership in general is the regional engagement to advance community health, and it's a systems approach to improve community health. So sometimes health providers in silos have a difficult time breaching community areas. And so this is a way to kind of break down some of those barriers to physical and mental health services for at-risk populations. And so there's many partners with this that we try to partner with to get information out to the public on certain chronic illnesses or health needs in our area specifically, and which is Danville, Pennsylvania, and Caswell is where they serve. And so the members go out in the community. They do workshops. For some examples, they've done at senior centers, they've done at homeless shelters, they've done just general in the public at local community centers. I mean, anywhere they can go and do these workshops to really educate and inform people about certain health conditions that affect our area. So some examples that they've done are diabetes, mental health, exercise, nutrition, different things that we see in our area specifically that people may need more information about in general, or to recognize symptoms, or to know some resources that they can go to for help. Our members are not health professionals, they're not doctors, so they're not giving medical advice, but they are giving some of that needed information of being able to recognize some things that them or their loved ones may be going through in those areas.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that that region, Danville, Pennsylvania County, Caswell County, for a lot of I think health outcomes is the word they use. We rank pretty low in terms of how healthy our community is, and that the work that program is doing is very targeted to those areas where we rank low. As you said, I think just to recap some of that too. So basically the REACH partnership is a sort of connected component where it's the Institute, it's the Health Collaborative, and a bunch of other organizations working together to address those barriers to physical and mental health services, as you said. And then the AmeriCorps program, the Public Health AmeriCorps program, is sort of working in tangent with them. Is that sort of the correct way to frame that?
So some of our community health workers in the REACH program, they see a lot of the needs in the community or people who may need assistance or things. And so it kind of works in partnership in that our AmeriCorps members can work with the community health workers and other local partner agencies to identify some of those needs and help get those workshops out into areas that may be needed as well.
Who can participate in these programs for both the Dan River program and the REACH or Public Health AmeriCorps program? What are sort of the requirements for someone to participate? Who are the types of people that you all see normally taking advantage of this?
So in order to be an AmeriCorps member, they have to have a high school diploma or GED, and they have to be a legal or lawful permanent resident of the United States. So those are some AmeriCorps requirements for the programs. After that, really the biggest thing that we look for are the heart of service, wanting to give back to our community. And we tend to find three different groups of people that apply for either program. One are younger individuals who maybe are looking to take a gap year or build their skill set in either of these areas of education or health. And so it's a great way to get some experience, some money for school, in the program. We also get retired individuals who aren't quite ready to stay retired and they want to give back to the community, and this is a meaningful way to serve the community. And they might want to use the Siegel education for themselves or gift it to their child or grandchild. And we also get career switchers that maybe don't necessarily have much experience in a certain field and want to determine if it's a field they want to go in without the full commitment of going to get a bachelor's degree or something like that may be needed. So it gives them the confidence to say, yes, this is what I want to do, or no, this isn't what I want to do, or just looking to gain some experience in the work field in general. So the biggest success that we've seen is not necessarily what's based on your resume, but having that heart for service and being willing to meet the needs of our community.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And if someone wanted to apply to either of those positions, how would they go about doing that right now?
They could just contact me here at the Institute. If they ask for the AmeriCorps program, they will be connected to me, Dana Salicki, at the Institute, or they can go to our website, IALR.org/AmeriCorps.
Okay, perfect. And I want to talk to you too about, and I mentioned this at the beginning, that I think, at least from my perspective, when I first looked at these programs and was first really understanding the Institute, some of those connections to our mission are very clear. Economic development, recruiting businesses, that has a very obvious tie to economic transformation. I think these AmeriCorps programs, it's a little less obvious. How do these programs contribute to economic growth, economic transformation for Southern Virginia, for our community?
So one of the biggest drivers of economic transformation in any community is the success of our schools. That's our future, right? So anything that we can do to help the schools, to help our youth to be successful is going to help the community by leaps and bounds. Because if students get behind, the quicker we can kind of address that and get them back on track, then that's going to help them have more success as they age as well. Also with healthier communities directly relate to economic transformation when then the community doesn't have to spend as much on health care or loss of wages when they're out for health issues from their jobs or things like that. So there's a direct benefit for having healthy communities that you see in the economy as well as the members themselves. Just since we have implemented the Dan River Year program in 2015, our members have served over 166,000 hours in our community. And with that, we talked about the Siegel Education Award. They have earned over $450,000 for education. So, we're helping not only build up our youth in the community, but we're helping the members better themselves as well, and their education level and their health for the community as well. So all of those directly tie back to helping the economy.
I'm excited to see the impact that these programs continue to have. I know, Dan River Year, we're, I think you said on year 9, and the Public Health AmeriCorps just is getting into year 2. So that one obviously we'll expect to, continue to grow and develop as it moves on. as you just said, there is a very clear tie to economic transformation. It might not be the most obvious or most business oriented, but it is a very clear tie to the economic growth and transformation of our region that these programs are having. As you said, both actively recruiting for members right now, and on our website, IALR.org/AmeriCorps, you can find more information there. These are great opportunities, as Dana has laid out. These are great opportunities for career switchers, for gap year students, for retirees, for anyone who is interested in these areas. There is potential here, and as you said, it's flexible. There are, especially the Dan River Year program, there's those after school hours where it's as little as 5 to 10 hours a week versus those in school hours where it's a little bit more involved. I would imagine there's flexibility with location, with days, with all of that. But Dana, I really appreciate you being here today. Is there anything else that you would want to add, or any I guess parting thoughts you would want to share?
One, thank you for having me, but also, if anybody's interested in giving back, or if they're looking to work with youth or in public health doing some workshops, and they're like, I don't know if I can commit to the time, just give us a call and we'd be happy to talk with them about what their schedule is, what we may be able to fit in if they want to serve with AmeriCorps. If they're not able to serve, we're always looking for volunteers as well. But again, it's not something that there has to be something specific on their resume. Really, we're looking for people that want to give back to the community, and we're happy to have those one-on-one conversations and determine the best fit for them.
No, absolutely. Well, Dana, thanks again for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Megabytes, IALR's on-site cafe, features everyday favorites, convenient ordering options, and an eager staff ready to welcome and serve you. Our enticing menus offer something for everyone, from a fresh, well-stocked salad bar, wraps, sandwiches, and our rotating hot buffet offered on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Megabytes is open Monday through Friday from 9:15 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. To view menus and for more information, visit IALR.org/megabytes.